All right, we are officially underway. This is Sandy Reese, and welcome to Four-Legged Fundraising, how to fully fund your organization and save more lives. I am excited that you have decided to take a little time out of your day and spend with me today to learn about raising more money for your organization. I appreciate everybody being here. For those of you who haven't yet typed in the chat box, go ahead or in the Q&A box rather, and let me know where you're calling in from. We have so far Barbara from Philly. Hey, Barbara, glad you're here. Vicki from Bakersfield, California. Pamela from Michigan. Penny's in New Jersey. Deb in St. Louis. Deb, I was just in Cape Girardeau over the weekend with the Humane Society down there. How about that? Great. Well, wherever you guys are all joining in from, I'm really excited that you're here. We're going to talk some about fundraising. So a couple of things before we jump in. One, if you have questions, you've got the Q&A box, and many of you have already been testing that out for me today. Please feel free to use that as we go. Type those questions in. I'm going to be keeping an eye on that, and I'm going to do my best to save a little time at the end for Q&A. I've got a ton of stuff that I'm going to share with you today. I am recording, and so after we are finished, I will share with you the link to the recording so that you can go back and watch specific parts again or look at the slides or whatever you'd like to do. So not to worry, I am recording and I'll share that with you. I do have a ton of stuff that I'm going to share with you today. I've got some extra resources that I'm going to offer you at the end. So buckle up and let's jump in. You are in the right place today if you have a big vision, perhaps for saving more animals or taking your community no-kill, or maybe you want to build a shelter of your own, or maybe there's something else you want to do. You got a big vision and you need to raise more money to grow the programs, or maybe you even love to hire more staff or even pay yourself. I work with a lot of animal rescue groups that are pretty small, and I usually have people going, yes, I would love to be able to quit my full-time job and pay myself through the rescue. And I actually got a story I can share with you about somebody who did that in a very short period of time. Maybe you haven't yet mastered fundraising and you just love for it to be easier. So maybe those other things don't apply to you, but you'd just really love for this to all be easier, because right now it's not. If any of that is you, you are in the right spot. This is what we're going to talk about today, including why your current fundraising isn't bringing in the money that you need. So I'm going to give you some insight into what might be going on there. I'm going to share with you my 3-part formula for successful fundraising. I have shared this, I'm really sure, with thousands of people in the last several years, and it's always an eye-opener. It's always something that gives people a big aha moment, and I'm really excited to share it with you today too. And then I also have my 1-10-1000 rule, which you are going to love. You're going to love it, because it's going to give you a framework for planning your fundraising year and give you an out so that you can stop doing all the nickel and dime fundraising and all those events and all that stuff that makes you crazy. Does that sound good? Sounds good to me. Well, let's jump in. So some of you are brand new to the world of Get Fully Funded, and to me, I'm Sandy Reese. I am a fundraising coach and a trainer. This is how I spend my days, is helping small nonprofits learn to master fundraising and show them how to do things like build their donor base and master their messaging and pull everything off in such a way that donations just flow in. I've written several books. I'm a huge animal lover. As a matter of fact, this is me and my dog, Lucy. You know what? Let me just introduce you to my whole crew. This is Ginger and Cosmo. We adopted both of them from our local shelter. This is Astrid, our Black Panther ninja kitty. She was a stray that wandered up that we decided to keep, along with Maggie. Maggie's also a stray that they wander up to our place and we keep them. That's how this goes. Lucy, we adopted at a PetSmart adoption weekend. She's just a fantastic dog. We do have horses. I live on a farm, so this is Mac and Buddy. Buddy, the brown one in the back, he's a rescue. He came from Horsehaven of Tennessee. And this is our newest addition, little Izzy. She's a little tiny scrap of a thing that was found in the parking lot at PetSmart. And she stayed with a couple of different people, and I wound up with Izzy, and she's adorable, and she and Lucy are really hitting it off, which is really fun. So that's my crew. So I guess in the words of Jackson Galaxy, we are tripetual. We have dogs and cats and horses. There's always something going on at my house. I'm going to give you a little background into this, because I know when you're at a conference or you're listening to a webinar, it's real easy to think, you know what, you're the presenter, of course you know this stuff, you're the expert here. I don't know how I would come to be very knowledgeable about all this stuff too, but I just want you to know that, whoops, I went backwards. I was not born with fundraising skills. I really wasn't. I don't remember signing up for fundraising at Career Day either. You got to love the hair in that picture. Where I learned it was the hard way. I got my start in nonprofit in 1998, the local rescue mission. Was there for a year doing all kinds of crazy stuff like running events and volunteers and the thrift store, which I'd never done before. That was fun. And then I made a transition over to the food bank, and I spent 5 years there learning how to raise money. In fact, a lot of the things that I'm going to teach you today are things that I learned the hard way. I can't stand to watch anybody struggle with fundraising. I don't like to see anybody learning things the hard way like I did. And so I try to help other people through the benefit of all the suffering that I did. One of the things that I wanted to do was to be able to go work at the animal shelter, because I was a huge animal lover back then, still am, and it just never worked out. And so I'm really excited that now I do get to spend a lot of time working with animal groups. Today, well, let me back up and say in 2005, I took the leap and started Get Fully Funded. So the company is, what year is it? I guess we're 12 years old at this point. There are 4 of us. We just hired another person. So we're quite a growing organization. And today I get to spend my time teaching other people what I learned the hard way. I get to spend my time leading webinars and live workshops. This is actually a picture from a 3-day event we just did in Atlanta last month. It was a ton of fun. But the other thing that I do that I think probably has more bearing is that I'm actually the board chair of Horsehaven, the local horse rescue group. And this is a picture of our board at our fundraiser this spring, which I think is very cool that we were able to gather everybody up. So I have some hands-on experience that I can share with you, and I may tell you a couple of Horsehaven stories today. I get it where you are. I know that when you're first learning something, it's not the easiest thing. There's a lot of holes in your knowledge, you may be missing things. And so that's part of what I want to do today is fill in what you don't know, show you some things that might make your life easier and get you positioned for raising more money, particularly as we move toward the holidays. You are in fundraising season right now. And I want to make sure that you are positioned to take advantage of that and get the most out of that. Does that sound good? If that sounds good, why don't you type in the Q&A and tell me that sounds good. This is interactive. Have you figured that out? Some of you are still going, wait, what? What's going on here? All right, thank you. Thank you for everybody who's saying, woohoo, this sounds good. Yes, please make it easier. Awesome. Well, that's what we're going to do. So let's talk about fundraising. I know for some of you, this is the F word. For some of you, you're almost there. Like, just need to fill in a couple of things in your knowledge and you're going to be fine. So let's talk about it. Here's where I want to start. When you raise more money, you can change more lives or save more lives. Some of you are literally in the business of saving lives. At Horsehaven, we certainly are. Saving horses from abuse and neglect and getting them out of some really bad situations. When you raise more money, you can do more of that. Yes? Yes. So let's move down that path of getting you to the place where you can raise more money. You may have a fundraising problem right now. See if any of this sounds familiar. You may be doing it backwards. In other words, you may be going out just to see, hey, let's go see how much money we can raise, and then we'll come back and figure out how to spend it. That's backwards. You want to start by looking at what you want to do in terms of service delivery across the year and figure out what that's going to cost and go out and raise that amount of money. It's actually easier to ask for that money. It's easier to get people on board with it if you do it that way. You may be chasing nickels and dimes. What that looks like is car wash and bake sale and t-shirt sales and Buffalo Wild Wings night, which don't get me wrong, I know that can be important for people. At Horsehaven, we used to do that. It was Buffalo Wild Wings night, where you know that kind of event where um, you give people a flyer about the event. They take the flyer, they go to Buffalo Wild Wings, they eat their dinner, and they tell them, "Hey, I'm here for Horsehaven's fundraising night," and then Buffalo Wild Wings gives you a percentage of what they sell that night, right? You guys either heard of that or done that or participated. But the problem is you can promote the hell out of it. You can spend a lot of time on it and basically make $150. You can work really hard for not a lot of money. So you've got to stop doing that. Everybody has a version of Buffalo Wild Wings night. Now I know when you're first getting started, that may be that may really look juicy to you that you can get a couple $100, but I'm going to tell you the day will come when you go, we just can't do that anymore. You can't, because you got to spend your time on things that are going to bring in bigger amounts of money. You might be doing sole source funding, which is also a huge problem. And for a lot of animal rescue groups, that means you're living either off your adoption fees. I just talked to somebody yesterday who has a horse rescue. She rescues minis, and that's what she's doing right now. She's living off her adoption fees, which are not very much. And so subsequently, she's struggling. I do a lot of work with best friends, and they tell me they have a lot of organizations that try to live off of their best friends grant, and it just doesn't work. It doesn't work. It sets you up for all kinds of problems down the road. In fact, sole source funding will keep you stuck in a lot of ways because it limits how many animals you can help. You have very limited funding. It limits how much good you can do. It may knock you out of the running for grants. We actually have a couple of grant writers on staff here, and we write a lot of grants for people. And we know because we've heard the grant review people at Best Friends tell us we don't like it when we see that there's only one main source of funding. We want to see that an organization is stable, that they've got a lot of money coming in from a lot of different places, and that tells us they're going to be around for the long haul. We've actually had a lot of foundations say something similar to us like that. So if you're doing any of those, today's the day you draw the line in the sand and say, you know what, we're going to give all that up. It may be that you are an underfunded organization. So you may be focusing on fundraisers as opposed to a fully funded organization that really gets focused on donors. And there's a difference. If you're focused on the fundraisers, you're all about the event. You're all about the money. If you're looking at the donors, you're building relationships. You may be very focused on how much money is actually in the bank and making your decisions based on that. Fully funded organizations make their decisions based on their vision. Underfunded tends to live from one cash infusion to the next. In other words, from one grant to the next, from one event to the next. If you're fully funded, you have a steady stream of revenue coming in all year long. I'll tell you what, I have been in both of these situations. When I first started in fundraising and I didn't know what I was doing, my organization lived from one cash infusion to the next. When I figured this stuff out, we had money coming in all year long, and it was beautiful. And I never worried about it. I never laid awake at night worrying about where money was coming from. I didn't worry about my job. I didn't worry about the people we served because I had diversified revenue is what that's called. And it was beautiful. Underfunded organizations tend to have a poverty mentality. Fully funded are committing to doing whatever it takes. Fully funded organizations get themselves to a webinar where they can learn how to grow their skills just like you have done today. So good job. Underfunded tend to settle for whatever they can get. Fully funded are not good with status quo, and they find a way to overcome it. Boy, that describes me so well. I cannot stand status quo. I'm always looking for a way to do it better, to do it bigger, to get more juice out of the orange, if you will. Here's the bottom line of it. Organizations that struggle for money, the ones that are underfunded, are all about the money. That's all they focus on is we got to get the money in the door. Fully funded organizations are much more interested in the relationship and the future donations. In other words, do you want the goose or do you want the golden egg? If you get all focused on the golden egg, you're all about the money. If you focus on the goose and you take care of the goose, you are going to have money from now on. If you keep feeding the goose, you keep taking care of the goose, you've got it. All right, does that make sense to you? Now, what normally happens at this point is there's some people going like, ouch, ouch. We've been working from this underfunded situation. Again, today's the day you draw the line in the sand if that's you, and you decide we're not going to do that anymore. One more thing that can get in the way of raising big money is the myth of the shoestring budget. So I want to bust this myth right now. The myth of the shoestring budget goes like this. If you're a nonprofit, you're supposed to struggle. You're not supposed to have money. We're supposed to bootstrap everything, and we got to do everything on the cheap. That's some thinking that's going to keep you stuck. It's going to keep your organization in a place where you have to say no and you have to turn animals away. And I know that you don't want to do that. I know that you hate that. And I know that many of you try to find a way. You say yes anyway, and then you go, well, I have no idea how we're going to pay for this. I have no idea how we're going to vet this animal, but we're going to say yes. We're going to figure it out. So we got to ditch that myth of the shoestring budget. It is okay. It's okay for you as an organization to have a lot of money coming in. Think about some of the big organizations, the big nonprofits like Austin Pets Alive. They've got a lot of money coming in, and there's nothing wrong with that. The line here is that you can have plenty of money coming in as long as you're pouring it back into your programs. It is all good. It's okay. You can even pay your staff well. It is perfectly okay to pay your team, pay your staff a good living wage. In fact, this is a whole thing brewing in the nonprofit world right now about nonprofits that don't want to pay very well. So we got to bust out of all this thinking because there are so many animals that are depending on us. And I think right now more than ever, I'm watching with a lot of admiration as a lot of shelters are pulling animals out of Florida and Texas, and they're trying to clear those shelters before those hurricanes so that all the lost animals could go into the local shelters. And I love that. And at the same time, I'm thinking, oh man, this is going to require so many communities to step up in such a big way because those shelters are going to need additional funding. They're going to need more fosters. They're going to need more adopters. They're going to need more of everything. So we have to do something. Yes, it is time for us to draw that line in the sand. It's time for us to say no more of the nickel and dime. It's time for us to raise the bar on how we all do fundraising so that we can save more animals. We've got to. They're depending on us. So what is good fundraising? It is donor focused. You should be picking up on that by now. It is a partnership opportunity. In other words, it's an opportunity for you to allow people to partner with you by providing the money that you need to do the work that you already are doing. It's transformational for the donor and for the charity. When people give big gifts, it makes them feel good. So I want you to think for a minute about yourself. Think about a time when somebody really needed you. Maybe they were in a desperate situation. I think about a family in my community that called late one night and their basement was flooding, and they said, is there any way you can come help us? And we did. We jumped in the car and went. You've probably had a similar experience. Think about how that makes you feel when you get to help somebody else. How do you feel when you get to be the one to step in and help somebody out, or you get to be the one to take that dog when nobody else will take them? How do you feel? You feel really good, don't you? Yeah. It makes you happy. It gives you a sense of joy, a sense of pride. You like doing it. Well, guess what? Your donors feel the same way. They love giving you money because it makes them feel good. And as long as you can continue giving them that experience where they can feel good, they will continue to give. And it's very likely that they will give bigger. Fundraising is not about begging. It's not arm twisting. It's not about selling stuff or hitting people up. In fact, hitting people up is language that indicates to me we got a negative mindset going on. And so if that's happening for you, you've got to ditch that pretty fast. All right, so now that you've got an idea of what fundraising is and isn't, let's go look at the 3-part fundraising success formula. This is pretty simple. You want to jot this down in your notes. Good fundraising, successful fundraising, long-term impact fundraising is about getting in front of the right people at the right time with the right message. And when you do that, you will get a donation. If your experience with fundraising has been that you are not raising much money, you are probably either talking to the wrong people or you're saying something that is not motivating them to give, or your timing is off. There's something going on. There's one of these three, or maybe two or three of these three, that are messed up. They're not on, and that's why you have the experience that you're having. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to break each one of these down for you so you can see what these are all about. And I think you'll get some insight into this. Let's start with the right people. So here's the first thing you need to know. Not everybody is going to give to your nonprofit. Not everybody gives to charity anyway. There's a percent of the population that does not give to charity, period. And of people who do give, they have their favorites. So if this grid of people represents the people in your community, the lady in the top left corner, the dark hair and the light blue shirt, her favorite organization might be the symphony. And if that's the case, she's not going to give to you because you're not her favorite. So what you got to do is figure out who are the right people. Who are the people who already care about animals and they don't want to see any animal suffer, and they would give to us if they just knew what we were doing. If they just knew we were here, they would give. That's who you're looking for. So you got to get really clear about that. Is it the guy in the bottom right with the pink jacket, or is it the man in the third row with the Santa hat? Who's your ideal donor? When you can figure that out, everything gets easier. What may get in your way, number one, is the passion myth, where you believe that because you're passionate, everybody else is going to be passionate, and it's just not so. Sometimes people don't even have to be passionate in order to give money to your cause. They don't have to care to the same extent that you care. You may be thinking everybody ought to care about animals. This is a broad appeal kind of mission. And again, not everybody cares about the same thing that you do. You have to find the pockets of people who are going to care about your mission and your organization. They're out there. You just got to find them. Inconsistent outreach is another real problem in finding supporters for your organization. I know of an organization that basically was reaching out in January each year trying to find new donors. And so they came to me and said, we're having a real problem. And when I started asking questions and digging in, that's when I found out they were only asking in January. And I said, that's a real problem. You're missing opportunities the other 11 months of the year to engage people in the work that you're doing because you're not asking. So these are easy to fix. These are very easy to fix. Now, I alluded to this a minute ago, but I want to dig into it. You get into some really hardcore marketing here and figure out who your ideal donor is. So while this is a hardcore marketing concept, there's an easy way to do it. And here's the easy way to do it. You'll take a look at your current donors, the people who are supporting you right now. And if you don't have any donors, think about your volunteers and your fosters. Think about the people who are engaged with your organization. And then figure out what they have in common. What do they have in common? Look for things like what they like, what they value, and what they're interested in. So in other words, we're looking at demographics and psychographics. Are they male or female, or maybe they're both? Is there a particular age range that they belong to? What do they value? Where do they have fun? What about family? Do they have family? Do they value their family? Where do they spend their time? Where do they spend their money? What else can you figure out about them? When you can figure out who your ideal donor is, you can go find them easily and in large numbers out into the community. I think really what you're looking for is likes, values, and interests. So the first time I heard this concept, I was actually working at the food bank, and we had a consultant who worked with a lot of food banks across the country, and he said, listen, your typical donor for food bank is female, 55 plus. She's got family and values family. She is active in the community, so she's volunteering for other organizations. She might be volunteering for you. She is active in some kind of church or a religious organization. She's educated. She's probably listening to NPR. I mean, they just rattled this all off, and I went, huh. And I started thinking about donors that I had and that I knew something about them. And this was so not scientific. I just thought about the ones that I knew, and it matched. And I said, all right, if I'm looking for women 55 plus with family who are active in the community and attending church somewhere, where can I go find them easily and in large numbers? And I thought, you know what? I bet a lot of these churches have women's groups, and I bet a lot of them look for speakers. I need to go out and speak to these women's groups. So I just started internally. I asked my coworkers and the board, I said, you guys is there a women's group at the church you go to? And do they look for speakers? And I put a program together, and I was out speaking to these groups within just a few weeks. It didn't take long. And what I figured out, what my experience was, when I went to a group like that and delivered a great program, and that's a whole other thing. You got to do a great program. It can't be boring. It can't put people to sleep, but a program that engages them emotionally. I would leave every time with a full sign-up sheet. So I would pass a sign-up sheet around and have them put their name and address or email down. I'd have a full sign-up sheet. I'd have a handful of cash and checks. I would have invitations to go speak in other places, and then the group itself would write the check for the organization every time. It was a fantastic way to go pick up new donors, and that will work for you too. You just got to figure out, who are you looking for? Where can you find them? Easily and in large numbers. When you do that, life is going to get a whole lot easier, because then you're not spending a lot of time chasing your tail. You're not trying to approach everybody, because not everybody cares. When you get in front of the right people, oh my gosh, life gets so much easier, and fundraising gets a lot easier as well. Let me go on to part 2, the right message. So right people is important. You got to be talking to people who already care about animals, but then you got to say something that's going to resonate. So it can't just be trying to broadcast and shout at people through a megaphone, because that's not going to work. Here's some other things that are not going to work. Number 1 is self-centeredness. In other words, talking all about you and all about your organization. I just saw a newsletter this morning from an organization that I wanted to hit reply and say, y'all are very inwardly focused here. Everything was all about them. It was all about their staff. It was all about what's been happening for them. Out of the 7 or 8 pieces in their newsletter, there was one piece that was actually about the people that they serve. As a donor, I don't care. I don't care that it's your anniversary. I don't care about the new staff that you've hired. I really don't as a donor. I want to know what you're doing that makes a difference in the world. So you have to make sure that your language is donor focused. It's sharing things that donors care about, not just what you care about. You're going to talk about existence versus impact. Actually, you want to talk about impact, not existence. So my friend Beth Brodowski over at Nonprofit Toolkit said this a couple of years ago, and it really struck me. She said, people don't want to fund your existence. They want to fund your impact. So in other words, if you're talking to people about your budget, your need to keep the lights on, your annual fund, you are talking about your existence, and people don't care. You want to talk, instead about your impact. You want to talk about the number of lives that have been saved, the number of animals that have been rehomed. You want to talk about the difference that your organization is making. To me, that was huge. That was like, whoa, what a big aha. Don't talk about anything that has to do with you continuing to operate. Talk about how you're making a difference and how you're saving more animals. Another huge thing that we've all got to drop is jargon. A lot of you are communicating with jargon breath, and it's pretty stinky, and your donors don't really care. Jargon is things like the acronyms they use, the slang that you might use, anything that's insider language. So if you're trying to communicate with your donors or with the community and you use things like TNR or what do they call that? Open intake shelter. You're an open intake facility. The average person does not know what you mean. You need to write and communicate for the least common denominator. Write for the person, communicate for the person who has the least understanding of your organization. And then you will be fine. So if you can set your newsletter up, your thank you letters, your social media, your talk that you're going to do in the community, your press release, anything that you're communicating, make it so that a 6-year-old child would understand it. You're going to be just fine. Leave out all the acronyms, the jargon, the stuff that a 6-year-old would not understand. You'll be fine. It makes a huge difference. Communication is key. That's how you're going to take care of that golden goose, is by telling them stories about how things are changing in your community because of the work you're doing. So here's a framework you can use. You're going to want to write this down. You can take this and use it in all kinds of ways. I call it who, how, story. Now, you can use this for an elevator speech. You can use this as a framework to start a story for a newsletter. You can use this as a framework for a social media post. But basically, it goes like this. We help who? Who is who you're helping, whether it's senior dogs, feral cats, horses, guinea pigs, rabbits, whatever it is, that's who you're helping. And then to how. How is the transition that you're trying to make for them. So not how you're helping, but how you're making a difference, how you're changing their life. So we help who to how. We help senior dogs to live out the final days of their life in peace and comfort and with love. See how that works? And then the second line, let me tell you about story. So that's how this goes. If that's all you can remember, that's good enough. It gives you a framework that you can use. Again, you can use it at a cocktail party. If you're meeting somebody, you can use it in social media. We help domestic rabbits to find a happy, healthy place to live their lives. Let me tell you about Roxy. Roxy is a rabbit that was found in the park down by Oak Street. Somebody had turned her out thinking that she could live outside because she's a rabbit after all. And then you go on and tell the rest of the story about that rabbit. And see how that works? It's pretty simple and it's very effective. And by the way, this is a tool that you can teach to your board. So I saw Victoria was asking about what do you do if you need to get your board engaged in fundraising? Well, you can share this with them and give them some words. So this is a whole other thing we can talk about is why board members won't help with fundraising. But I'll tell you one of the reasons is they don't know what to say. They don't know who to talk to and they don't know what to say. So you could start by sharing this with them, and that's going to be really helpful in moving them towards saying yes to helping you with fundraising. I've got some people in several clients and some people in my ARF Club program who have really taken this and run with it. And what they have found is keeping their language very simple, particularly on Facebook, has been huge for them to engage people in supporting their work. ARF Club, my one ARF Club member, Becky Roy, who runs Draft Gratitude in New Hampshire, she has gotten really good at telling her story and including photos and video and things. And she's found that it really does inspire people to give, so much so that she's got a very active monthly giving program, and she never has any trouble getting people to sponsor new horses when they're brought in to her facility, which is very cool. Very cool stuff. All right, let's talk about part 3. So we've talked about right people and right message. Let's talk about the right time. Now, if you can see this picture I have on the screen here, what do you think's going on? Looks like a wedding, right? Because I doubt it doesn't look like they're going grocery shopping or anything else. So let me ask you a question. Do you think she wore that dress on their first date? Probably not, right? Would have scared him off. That's not how it goes. How do relationships grow? Well, they grow in small steps and they grow over time, right? That's what it takes. You don't marry somebody on the first date. Well, not usually, and usually there's a shotgun involved, or it just doesn't happen that way. And it's not going to happen that way with your donors either. You need to build a relationship with them to the point that they feel comfortable with your organization, they love you, and they want to support you and support what's going on. By the way, this is actually my daughter and son-in-law. They just got married in May, and I love using that picture because I think it's really pretty. So let's talk about what can get in your way of building relationships with people. Number 1 is desperation mode. When you are in a space where you are desperate for money, maybe you've got vet bills that are due and there's hardly anything in your bank account and you are desperate, people are going to pick up on it. Desperation stinks and donors can smell it. So when you're in desperation mode, it is very difficult to build those relationships. You actually are going to be pushing people away more than you're pulling them towards you. So we've got to get you out of desperation mode. Even if you are in a space where you don't have a lot of money, you can't act like it. You can't talk like it because it doesn't help anything. The ick factor is another one. A lot of people don't want anything to do with fundraising because it's icky. It's undesirable. And if that's how you feel, we need to give you a little mindset adjustment. Fundraising actually is a very honorable, noble activity. It's not about taking advantage of anybody, and it's about partnering with people. And I'll give you one quick trick that will really help you, and that is to think about the person, not their money. So even if they weren't going to give you money, do you still want their support? Do you still want them on your team? Do you still want them as part of your family? The answer is yes, because there may be other things they can help you with. They may be able to give their time. They may be able to share some connections. There may be other things they can help you with. So if you feel icky about asking people for money, there's a mindset shift that you need. And actually, I do a whole training on this in the ARF Club program that I lead, and in a couple of other of my programs, because I think it's that important. Another thing that may be really happening for you is you may be skipping the ABCs. So the ABCs of relationship building look like this, or the ABCs of timing, which are very similar, about the same thing. You have to add value. People only stay in relationships where they're getting something out of it. Think about that for a minute. In the past, have you dated somebody that you wake up one day and you're like, I don't feel like this is working for me anymore. I don't enjoy spending time with that person anymore. I think it's time to break up, or I think it's time to not spend time with them anymore. I think we've all experienced that at some point. You never, ever want a donor to wake up one day and say, I am really tired of that rescue group. They're on my last nerve. You don't want that. So you have to add value. It's your job to add value to the relationship. How do you do that? Well, some of these things we talked about, get your messaging figured out. Make sure that you're sharing stories. You really, bottom line, need to be making that donor feel good about their connection with you. Make them feel good about participating with your organization, and they will keep giving. It's that simple. The easiest way to do that is telling stories. Tell them what's happening. Tell them the story about the dog that just got brought to your shelter that was picked up on the side of the interstate. Tell them a story about the cat that had the leg caught in the animal trap and had to be amputated. Tell your stories. That's what people want to know. So the B in the ABCs is about building trust, and this is critical. How many of you have seen backlash already at the Red Cross for mishandling of donations in either one of the hurricanes? I have. I've seen a couple of pictures that have floated through my Facebook feed of some donations that basically were trashed. Now, I don't know if that's real, but it doesn't matter, because perception is reality for a lot of people. A lot of people don't stop to check out things that they read on social media, and they take all of it at face value, and they take all of it as it's real. Your job, especially when stuff like that is happening, your job is to build trust with your donors and with your community. And the way that you do that is by being very authentic and being transparent. In other words, you want to be very open with information. If somebody is interested in looking at your financials before they make a donation, you need to be willing to share that. Now, the likelihood of that happening is pretty slim, but if that happens, you want to be able to share that with them. Transparency and accountability are huge these days. A lot of people want to know if they give to an organization that money has been given wisely and given to an organization that can manage it well. Nobody likes to give money away and then find out that they just got taken advantage of, that they just got gypped. And so it's really important for you to build trust. Do whatever it takes to build trust with people. Cultivating interest, that's also part of the ABCs, and this is your job, is to keep people interested. This goes right along with adding value. Keeping people interested a lot of times is staying in touch with them. It's communicating consistently and regularly. It's telling them what you're doing and the fight that you're engaged in toward taking your community no-kill or lowering your euthanasia rates, whatever that looks like for your organization. Cultivating interest is about letting people know what's going on and what you're doing about it and how they can help. So this is all on your shoulders. I know some of you are going like, really? I have to do all of this on top of everything else I'm doing? Well, yeah, if you want to raise the money that you need to fully fund your budget, yes, you do. You have to do this. Here's what I have found after working with hundreds of nonprofits over the years. The ones who are very in tune to their donors, who see donors as partners, all of this stuff starts to come very naturally. It's not a struggle. It's not difficult to do. They are able to, they want to do good communication because they understand that the value is in the donor, not in the donation. And it becomes just second nature, and it's really not that hard to do. So it's really about where your focus is. Now, one of the other things that I want to share with you that has to do with timing is a question that I get asked a lot, and that is, how often can you ask for a donation? How often can you go back to the well before the well runs dry? And I want to give you what I call the 3-to-1 ratio. This is another one you're going to want to write down. This is pure gold right here. You can ask as often as you want, as long as in between the asks, you have 3 really good, juicy, warm communications that melt your donor's heart. Did you catch that? You can ask as often as you want, as long as in between the asks, you have 3 good, juicy communications that melt the donor's hearts. So in other words, if all you do is show up, ask, you're going to wear people out. They get really tired of that. In fact, think for a minute about somebody that you know that the only time you hear from them is when they want something. Do you have a friend like that? I think we all know somebody like that, right? It's annoying. I don't know about you, but I love that I have caller ID, because when that person's number pops up, I conveniently don't answer the phone because I know they're just going to ask me to do something else for them, and that's exhausting. Don't be that person to your donors. The way that you don't be that person is with the good, warm, juicy communications. You need a newsletter that isn't just a newsletter, but it's an update. It's a feel good. It's a warm touch. You need some other things that are going on too, not just newsletters, but maybe some phone calls, maybe a video, maybe something else that you can share that let people know what's going on and the difference that your organization is making. At Horsehaven, we had our big fundraiser back in May, and while we did send out thank you letters and all that got taken care of, we're talking about now shooting and sending out thank you videos to some of our sponsors to build that relationship and to let them know how much we appreciate it and what's happened to their sponsorship since the event. So that's something we're going to schedule and shoot and send out. And I think that will be a really warm, juicy communication for those people. I guarantee you many of them, if not all of them, have never received anything like that before. So if you didn't pick up that tip, you should pick it up. And that is video. Thank you video is hot, hot, hot. There's an article on my blog at getfullyfunded.com that talks about that being the hottest way to thank somebody ever. Just shoot them a thank you video. So you may want to have a look at that. All right, I'm going to come back and circle back around to building trust, because this is so key. It is your job to build trust with people. People are going to give to nonprofits they trust. They're going to volunteer with nonprofits they trust. They're going to recommend nonprofits they trust. So it's really important for you to keep the communication going. Be authentic and transparent. Be willing to give people behind the scenes tours if they are interested. Just be willing to give them your attention and information. Return phone calls, that's huge. Return emails if people email asking a question. It is important. It is important. One of the things that I teach a lot of my students, a lot of my clients is this. This is another writer downer. Until you know different, you treat everybody as if they're capable of making a game-changing gift. So until you know different, treat everybody as if they're capable of making a donation that changes the game for your organization. How big would that be? For some of you, it's a $10,000 donation. For some of you, it's $100,000. There may be some people that $1 million would absolutely change the game. And I guarantee you there are people out there who are capable of giving your organization those kind of donations. And some of you are blowing them off right now because you don't realize they're capable. Again, value the donor, not the money. Value the donor and the money will come. All right, I do want to give you some practical tips that you can take and use right away. And one of them is my 1-10-1000 rule, because there's still some things you need. So we talked a lot about what good fundraising is and isn't. We've talked about finding the right people and getting in front of them easily and in large numbers. We've talked about your messaging and making sure that it's donor focused and not inwardly focused, not selfish, not full of jargon, and all those sort of things. We talked about the right time and how important it is to ask when the time is right. And then we talked about the 3-to-1 ratio as well. What you need from here, you're going to need a plan to put this all together. So I want to give you the 1-10-1000 ratio because it gives you a base to start from when you're planning. What I also think would be super helpful for you, it's always been super helpful for me when I'm working on a plan or when I'm working on a grant or whatever it is, if I can have examples and samples, that makes my life a whole lot easier. And I'm sure it does for you as well. Help is always a good thing. Somebody that a mentor, somebody that I can go to and say, well, what do I do about this? That always is super helpful as well. And gosh, if I find somebody who's already doing fundraising in the way that I'm trying to do it, and I can basically use their system to create what I'm trying to create for my organization, that makes my life so much easier. And that's what I want for you to have as well. So before I give you the 1-10-1000 rule, which is one of the juiciest nuggets of the day, I do have a resource that I want to share with you and let you know about. It is called ARF Club. I've actually mentioned it a couple of times. It is a coaching training program that helps animal rescue groups raise money. It is specific for animal rescue. That's all we do in ARF Club. And what we try to do is give you the tools and the support that you need to go out and raise the kind of money that you need to raise. It is proven to work in the animal rescue space. We've got some pretty easy to use fundraising strategies that work to follow some simple steps to build that big, loyal donor base of people who already love your cause and will support what you're doing. It's a training-based program. Every month we have a webinar that's live, and I'll teach you things like how to build that big, loyal donor base, how to find and get grants. I'll give you a simple formula for a newsletter that donors open, read, share, and give to. We talk about appeals. We talk about year-end fundraising. We talk about events. We talk about all of it. And what it does is it gives you the information that you need in bite-sized nuggets that you can take and run with. You can implement it and see some results right away. And at the same time that you're learning and implementing, you get a lot of support that walks right beside it. So you get a monthly training video. We've got handouts and worksheets that will make your life easier. There's an online community that is spectacular. It's very active. In fact, I'll show you in just a second. You get a lot of Q&A time. We do a live Q&A hour every month, so you can ask any question that you want. We've got done-for-you tools, which means I always have a piece that I will share with you that all you have to do is plug your logo in, plug your information in, and you can use it. Everything from a grant calendar to thank you letters to event sponsorship invitations and all that sort of thing. Plus a weekly email that just kind of keep you motivated and inspired. So let me show you a couple of things real quick. By the way, you can go to arfclub.com and you can read all about it. You can read about the program and see exactly what we do cover by month. I want to show you real quick the Facebook group. So this is an active little place where people come in and share what they're working on, or sometimes they'll ask questions and get support. You can ask for ideas, you can ask for feedback. Sometimes I'll just share funny little things to make you laugh. We give away prizes, so random times we will choose people and give away stuff just for fun. Here's somebody asking about the Go-Go photo contest, and a lot of people are chiming in with their experience. So it is a place where you can hang out and ask questions and get support from other people who are doing the same things as you. It's open. There's another little funny thing. It is open 24/7, so you can go in there anytime and get some support. We do record everything that we're doing in ARF Club. So if you happen to miss something, if you can't make it to one of the live webinars, don't worry, we record everything. And then we have a password protected site where you can log in and get those. And we normally share the recordings in the Facebook group too. So you can go pick them up anytime you want. It is an organizational membership. So if you do want to join, you can bring in other people from your group too. So if you've got a couple of people who help you with a fundraising committee, you can bring them too, no problem. I do have a couple of bonuses that I like to give away. I mentioned earlier that I'm an author, and I've written a book called 10K Fundraising for Animal Rescue. And for those of you who decide that ARF Club sounds like a cool thing, you'd like to have some ongoing support and some education, and the idea of that community sounds really good, I'm going to gift you with the copy of this book. It's a hard copy book. It's a real book that we'll actually mail to your house or to your office, wherever you want us to send it, along with a DVD set. This is a 3-part video workshop called Sit, Stay, Give. Between the two of these, they cover all kinds of fundraising, marketing, ideal donors, messaging. There's all kinds of stuff that are covered in those. So if that's something you're interested in, we will gift you with a set of those just for signing up for ARF Club, because I like bonuses. I do have one other thing that I'll share with you. We have some copies of the Animal Rescue Fundraising Calendar, which is a perpetual calendar that has some inspirational quotes, but it also has about $500 worth of grant research in it. It comes from my friend Mandy Pierce over at Funding for Good. And literally, if you page through this calendar, you will find links for grants to fund things like spay-neuter and TNR and medical needs and all kinds of stuff. Like I said, there's about $500 worth of grant research in that calendar. And I'm going to give those away to the first 10 people who sign up. So if you're interested in ARF Club, you might want to jump quick on that and go grab yourself one of those calendars. You can sign up at arfclub.com. If you scroll down the page, there's a place where you can click on the Register Now button and get all signed up. And you'll get immediate access to the Facebook group and to this month's training, which was all about year-end fundraising. And I gave out a 3-page calendar of what you ought to be doing between now and the end of the year. So that's just a resource that I wanted to make available to you. If that's something that you're interested in, if you would love to have more help, we do dig further into some of these topics that we talked about today. I do dig into things like how to find those ideal donors and master your messaging and timing and all those things. So arfclub.com. Now, I promised you one more really juicy nugget, and I want to give that one to you. By the way, ARF Club is, I know some of you are going to like, wait, how much is it? It is $47 a month. Which is very, very cheap for what you get. It's a great value, and you're not going to find anything else out there that will give you the level of support and the quality of information that is specific to animal rescue. You just won't find it out there. So $47 a month, arfclub.com. If you want to jump in and try it out, you can try it for a month, and if you decide that that's not for you, you can cancel, no worries. But if you are serious about raising more money, you may want to really give it a look. Now, let's go on, because I got one more thing I want to share with you before we are done. And that is about strategy. I love this cartoon. So many of us make strategy so hard, and it doesn't have to be. What I mean by strategy is, what are you putting in your fundraising plan? How are you looking to raise the money that your organization needs? What are the strategies that you're choosing? A fundraising plan, by the way, will change the game for you. I'm leading another webinar in a couple of weeks where I'm going to be talking about 7 steps to putting a fundraising plan together. And by the way, in December in ARF Club, we have a training that's all about putting a fundraising plan together. And you get a template and show you a sample and all that sort of stuff. But what do you put in that plan? Well, stay away from nickel and dime activities. We talked about those earlier. Stay away from the sole source funding. You don't want to just live off your grants or off your adoption fees, and watch out for doing the same old thing. You don't want to just do something because you always have. You want to choose strategies that are going to work for you because they make sense and because they are a fit for your organization. So here's the 1-10-1000 rule. If you don't know what else to do to raise money, start with this. Do one event. Make it a signature event and blow it out of the water. Put all your effort and energy into it. Make it as big as you can, and then don't do any other fundraising events for the year. I'm going to guess that some of you are doing 5 or 6 events during the year, fundraising events, not adoption events. Those are different. Fundraising events. You got to stop because they wear people out. It's exhausting. Do one event, do it really well, hit it out of the park. Then go on to grants. You want to have at least 10 good grant opportunities on your grant deadline calendar. Why 10? Well, we do a lot of grant research here at Get Fully Funded, and we can almost always find 10 really good grant opportunities. Sometimes we find 7 or 8, sometimes we find 15 or 20, but on average, we can find anybody 10 good grant opportunities. The point here is do not leave grant money on the table. Go out and ask for the grants, keep your pipeline full. There's too much money out there for you to not be taking advantage of that. Then go build your donor base up to 1,000 donors. Why 1,000? Well, I've done some research and I've played with the numbers to see what it would take for a small organization to raise $100,000. Like, for example, if you wanted to grow your budget to $100,000, you need 1,000 individual donors to do that. If you already have 1,000 donors, then you probably should be looking at adding another 1,000. That is sustainability right there. When you can build a big loyal donor base of people who love your organization's mission and they're going to give because they want to see you succeed, that is where you're going to get long-term sustainability right there. So that's the 1-10-1000 rule. And if you're putting your fundraising plan together, it might look like this. A signature event to bring in $25,000. Is that doable? Yes. The picture I showed you of the board at Horsehaven, that was actually at our event this past spring. That event 3 years ago raised $16,000, and I got a hold of it and said, we're gonna bump this up. And we did. We put a committee in place, we got more sponsors, and the next year we raised 55. The next year it jumped to 93, and the picture you saw that year, which was this past May, we raised $117,000. And when we talk about special events in ARF Club, which actually is next month, I will tell you how we did that. How exactly we went from 16,000 to 117 in 3 years. It is not rocket science. And you can do it too. You absolutely can do it too. So in this sample then, look at what happens when you have 10 grants at $2,500 each, which is very conservative. Or 1,000 donors who are all giving you $50 each. Again, conservative. Now, the nice thing about this formula is you can scale it. So if your organization is already raising over 100,000, you can play with the numbers. Or if you already know for sure what your grant situation looks like, you can adjust these numbers to fit your organization. It gives you a place to start so that you're not flailing around trying to figure out what the heck to do to raise money for your organization. All right, so I've thrown a lot at you today. You've gotten the 3-part formula for success. We've got the 3-to-1 ratio, the 1-10-1000 rule. Now what? From here, I would love to see you set some specific goals about what you would like to do, particularly through the end of the year. It's fundraising season and you need to make the most of it. You need a written plan, number 2. That's the second thing you need is in writing. If it's not in writing, it's not real. The third thing you need is board buy-in. You need your board on board. You need people helping you to do this. You're not going to be successful long-term if you are the Lone Ranger. We have a whole lesson that we do in ARF Club just around how to engage your board in fundraising. So we can help you with that too. And then you got to get busy. Get busy working your plan, making the most of fundraising season, getting out and finding those ideal donors easily in large numbers by doing speaking engagements, being on TV, all those things that you probably should be doing. That is how you're going to raise the bar on the amount of money that you're raising. And it's not that hard to do, but you do need a system and you need a plan so that you can make it happen. I mean, just imagine how many more animals you could save if you had money coming in that you could count on. If you didn't have to lay awake at night wondering, like, how are we going to pay the vet bills? It can all be easier. So my hope for you is that you can take what you've learned today, go out, start to raise more money, make a difference, And if you want to join ARF Club and let me hold your hand, let me step beside you and help you with that, I would be honored to do that. All right, so we're right at the end of our time. I want to thank everybody for being here today. I am going to stick around for a few minutes and answer questions. If you need to leave, certainly I've completed all the information that I have for you, and understand if you need to go. If you have questions and want to stick around for a few minutes, I'm going to invite you to type your questions into the Q&A box, and I'll hang out and just answer questions for a few minutes. Okay, Nadia's asking about the ick factor. When do you offer the ick factor WebEx or presentation? I'm not sure I understand what you're asking there. The ick factor is that where you feel really just gross about asking people for money. You don't want to do that. I do have a training, and you can get access to it through ARF Club that will help you shift your mindset just a little bit and release that ick factor. You have to understand that other people probably also have an ick factor. You may have some board members that have that. And when you understand it for yourself, it's a whole lot easier to help them let go of it as well. Victoria was also asking about getting board members involved. And I'm going to tell you that a lot of them probably have some mindset issues about fundraising. They don't know how good fundraising works. They've had a bad experience of being told no somewhere along the way, and they don't know what to say. So they don't have the tools, they don't have the confidence. And when you can fix those two things for them, you will see more of your board members, they'll step forward and they'll help. Okay, Nadia, thank you for clarifying. Okay, Nadia is having a hard time getting past that wall to ask for donations. Okay, so a couple of things that I can give you like right now, Nadia, that'll be helpful for you. Number one is focus on the animals. I want you to think about the animals that you're helping. And would you ever want to look one of those animals in the eye and know that the reason that you can't pay the vet bills is because you didn't have the courage to go ask for a sponsorship? My version of this, when I was working at the food bank, I needed to make some cold calls, which I hate doing. I don't know anybody that likes cold calls. I needed to be able to call and get some food donated for as appetizers for an event. And boy, I was stuck. I did not want to do it. I didn't want to pick the phone up. I didn't want to just anything. Can I please do anything else but that? And I went and sat in the warehouse for a little while, and I watched people coming in getting emergency food. And something clicked in my brain that day. And I realized that when I did my job well, we had the money that we needed to take care of all those people. When I did my job well, people ate. And it was that day that I found the courage to pick up the phone and make those cold calls, because I realized it wasn't about me. It wasn't about me, my success, or being rejected. It was about my willingness to be brave and do it so that we could make sure those people ate. And that was the shift that I needed internally for myself to be able to do that and do it well. And I've shared that story with a lot of people, and I know that a lot of people have gotten courage from that as well. So hopefully that will help you. Yeah, you're welcome. You're welcome. Hello, Miss Bonnie. Bonnie says, seems like all signature events revolve around a formal dinner, the more creative ones with a theme. Do you have other non-dinner ideas? Yes. So Boys and Girls Club in Knoxville has a signature event called Rubber Duck Race. And it's one of those where people adopt rubber ducks in the community. And you can adopt a duck for like $10. And they take a dump truck load of these rubber ducks and they dump them in the Tennessee River right off the Gay Street Bridge. And then they kind of guide them along with jet skis, and they go down the river, and at some point they start plucking them out. And if they pluck out your duck, you win big prizes. Like I think they give away a car, and they've got, I don't know, a $5,000 prize, and it's crazy. They make about $500,000 off of that event, which is just crazy to me. They've been doing it for a long time, and that is a signature event. In this town, you can say Rubber Duck Race, and everybody knows that's Boys and Girls Club. At Horsehaven, our signature event is a Dancing with the Stars kind of event. It's kind of crazy. And we raised $117,000 this year off of that. And that's not a formal sit-down dinner. The therapeutic horseback riding group in the same county as me, they do something called Bridles and Blue Jeans, where they have a huge event. And yeah, there's a dinner with it and the silent auction. But they also have dancing and they play a lot of games. And they do a demonstration of the horseback riding. They do a lot of stuff with it. And they raise, I think, about $120,000 with that event. So I'm really convinced, Bonnie, that there is not a specific formula for a signature event other than it's got to be something that people are going to associate with your organization. So if it's in alignment with your mission, that helps. You got to put a lot of energy into it. You got to have a lot of people helping with it. Sponsors is where you're going to make the most of your money. But really, it's about the energy and the effort that you put into it. And I'm really convinced you can take any event and make it a signature event. So it doesn't have to be a dinner, although that's the way a lot of people go, and you can do that. So I'll give you two more examples. The Humane Society in Dayton, Ohio, and we've worked with them for years. Theirs is called, what is their event called? I think it's called Furball. And it's a dinner, but you get to bring your dog with you, which is really fun. And they have all kinds of activities for your dog, and they have a silent auction. They have all kinds of stuff that happens with that, which is really fun. So it's a dinner, but it has a twist to it in that you get to bring your dog. So you can put a little, a tuxedo tie on your dog and bring them with. It's really fun. The Humane Society over in Boone, North Carolina, they also do a dinner, and theirs is a twist with art. So they have a huge art auction that they do. The Pet Community Center in Nashville also has an art event that they raise a fair bit of money from. So it really doesn't matter what it is. It matters about how much effort and energy you can put into it, how many people you can get behind it, and if you can get the sponsors in. And that's a good question. All right, anybody else? Last call? Yes, you know me, Bonnie. Of course I've got other ideas, and I watch a lot of people. And so here's the good news for those of you in this animal rescue world. Half of our clients are animal welfare, animal rescue, or animal shelters. We do work with other organizations, but half of them are that. And I've been on site. I was just on site in Cape Girardeau over the weekend. They did an Ask event. They did a brunch and raised $25,000. It was their first time to do anything like that, and was very exciting. So I see a lot of this stuff, and I share an awful lot of it in ARF Club. I share all kinds of stuff there of things that I've seen people do that were so cool, or I brought back sample pledge cards, sample everything from Cape Girardeau, and I'll be scanning those and sharing those in ARF Club. So I think that's one of the benefits of that club is that I'm in this stuff. I'm in it every day. And then because I'm board chair at Horsehaven, and I'm basically running all the fundraising right now. I've got so much that I can share from that. And then just that community is amazing. The ARF Club community is so willing to share information. Nobody feels like it's all about them. We've got 5 or 6 horse rescue groups in there, and boy, they've all already been on the phone with each other, sharing information and ideas. And it doesn't have to just be fundraising. If you had a question about adoption fees or an adoption process or working with foster families or anything like that, you can use that group for that stuff too. Go in there and ask a question, and I guarantee you, most of the time before I circle back through and can answer it, somebody else is going to jump in and share what they do, which I think is beautiful. I love it. I think about when I sat in a fundraiser seat, there was nothing better to me than talking to somebody who did the same thing that I did in another city. I could learn so much from them and not have to reinvent the wheel. So, definitely that is a huge benefit of ARF Club, is just having access to that brain trust. Bonnie's got another question. Is it counterproductive to sit outside grocery stores asking for donations? I'm wondering if people will then not donate at other times because they feel they already did by dropping $1 or $5 when they saw the organization at the store. And P.S. ARF Club is fantastic. Thank you, Bonnie. Thank you. It can be counterproductive, maybe not necessarily in the way that you think. Go back to what we were talking about with finding the right people. when you sit outside the grocery store, that is a shotgun approach. And the only thing you have going for you is that a lot of people like animals. And so they are willing to drop the dollar in. But that is absolutely nickel and dime fundraising. Think about how much you make off of sitting outside of a grocery store. And even on a good day, it might be a few $100s. Are there easier, faster ways for you to raise more than a few $100s instead of doing that? The answer is yes. There absolutely are. There's so many other things that you could do. There's so much more productive and a better use of your time. I was just actually fussing at an ARF Club member last spring because she was doing an awful lot of that kind of stuff herself. And I said, I don't think you need to do it. And she felt really strongly that they should. And I said, that's okay, that's fine. But then you don't do it. You go get a volunteer to do that. You don't need to spend your time. She was the founder and acting as the executive director, and she had 1,000 things on her plate. I'm like, you cannot sit outside of Kroger and ask for donations. If you're unwilling to give that up, then get a volunteer to do it. Now, for her, it wasn't just Kroger. It was a farmer's market and an art show and some other things. And she said, yeah, but these might be our people. I said, are they or are they not? Yes or no, they're your people or they're not your people. And she couldn't really answer me. I'm like, you're just stretching now. We're just justifying because you like that activity and you think there might maybe kind of be a possibility of maybe someday meeting somebody who would maybe give a donation. That's a lot of maybe. And if you don't know that it's going to be productive, why are you doing it? Why are you doing things if you don't know that it's going to bear fruit for your organization? So I think for you, Bonnie, they're probably Bonnie saying, yeah, got it. I would think there's lower hanging fruit. I think there are probably some other things you could do where you could raise more money and be more effective about it, and not wear you out and not wear your volunteers out. All right, my friends. Looks like that's all our questions for now. Thanks, you guys, for sticking around. A lot of you have stayed here all the way to the end. If you want to type in the Q&A box and just let me know what you got out of today, what's your biggest takeaway? I would be very curious to know. So if you will just type that in for me. What's your biggest takeaway today? A lot of people tell me they love the 110-1000 rule. That's one of their favorites. Yeah, Nadia said that's her favorite. That's pretty common. People love that because otherwise you just kind of flail around going, I don't know. Let's do an event. Okay. How many of these should we be doing? How much of that should we be doing? The 3-to-1 ratio always pops up. There's usually somebody that says, yep, I love that. I love the 3-to-1 ratio as well. Yep. Awesome. All right. Thanks, you guys, for sharing. Well, I'm going to go ahead and call it a day. Oh, wait. Candy says, quit spinning my wheels with nickel and dime stuff. Go big or go home. Yes! You got it. You got it. That'll change the game for you right there. All righty. Yep. Okay, you guys, I'm going to go ahead and call it. Thanks for sticking around. If you're interested in ARF Club, go sign up, arfclub.com. There's a ton of reasons to do it. It will absolutely pay for itself in a flash. If it doesn't pay for itself, then you're not doing it right. You should well make your money back and then some. Very affordably priced at $47 a month. Don't forget, we do have the Animal Rescue Fundraising Calendar that has the grant research in it. I've got 10 of those set aside for the first 10 people that sign up. So go jump on that, and I'll see you guys again next time. Thanks again for being here. Bye, everybody.